Welcome to the Tackling Tech podcast, powered by Dyknow. Join us as we tackle all things EdTech with insightful interviews, actionable tips, and strategies that you can implement in your school or district to make technology integration more effective. Whether you're a teacher, a tech coach, or a technology administrator, we're giving you an advantage in your role by sharing stories from people who are passionate about working with their peers and enhancing the learning experience with technology. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Now let's tackle some tech.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Tackling Tech, a podcast that shares stories about how you can build better collaboration in K-12 schools, and of course, a show that is dedicated to putting a voice to remote learning. I am Brett McGrath, Vice President of Marketing at Dyknow, and I'm really excited about this conversation we have for you today. Hopefully, everyone is staying safe. We're in the summer months. I know we have teachers, tech coaches, tech admins, all who listen to Tackling Tech. Hopefully you all are on vacation, taking it easy, or if you are working, you're working on something fun. Definitely, we'd love to hear kind of what your primary focus is and those topics that are important to you at this point. So definitely reach out to us, share those. We always want to make sure that we have a pulse and we're delivering topics that matter each and every week, and we can't do that unless we get feedback from all of you. So we've got a pretty great event that is coming up, and it's coming up soon. So we have Coaching the Tech Coaches Workshop, which will be on July 10th from 12 to 1 Eastern. You can find information on Dyknow.com. We will have a banner on the top of the homepage. You can click and register. If you can't make it, still sign up and we'll send you a recording. It's going to be hands-on. It's going to be super fun. We're excited to get more tactical with this event, so hopefully you all can get inspired, get your hands a little dirty, and learn a little bit more. So we're excited about that event and the people that will be helping participate. Hopefully you also got a chance to check out Stephanie Howell's episode. That was a great conversation focused around blended learning. That was a primary topic. So if you're interested in learning more or are currently in a blended learning program or about to be within your school or district, check out that episode. As always, if you like what you are hearing on this show, leave us that 5-star reviews. That's so important to us and it's so helpful, and we do appreciate that. Subscribing if you're liking what you hear, so you get that download every Tuesday that the new episodes drop. You can tweet at us at Tackling Tech Pod. We've got a lot going on the YouTube front. I'm really excited about our YouTube channel right now. So hit subscribe on YouTube. Go find Dyknow Community, and hit subscribe. And also, we're bringing a new channel to the party. So we have an Instagram that we launched, and it's Dyknow_K12. That is going to be a great place where we're going to chop up a bunch of content that we have created on this show, or that's on our blog, or in our conversations that we're having with educators, and it's going to be there. We're going to be in your feed. We're going to be in your stories, you name it. I'm really excited about all the potential that we have on the Instagram front. So you can find Dyknow at Dyknow_K12. I am really, really excited about this conversation that we have today. It's with Kyle Niemis. Kyle is the co-creator of the ClassroomQ, and he's an Edtech coach at South Brunswick School District in New Jersey. Kyle is super passionate about flipped learning and really gave me a crash course in everything flipped learning related. I think it's really fun. I think Kyle's super passionate about leveraging video in the classroom, and I learned a ton about just how flipped learning can really help with the different levels of learning that each students have, and the application of flipped learning can really begin to get people to learn and understand content and absorb that content at their own pace, which I think is really, really important. So Without further ado, I am going to kick it over to the conversation. Enjoy. Welcome back to Tackling Tech. I am super excited for the conversation we have. I know we have sourced a lot of people we've talked to on this show, and we've gotten a list of people that we need to talk to. And today's guest certainly was on that list. So I'm super excited to introduce everyone to Kyle Niemis. Kyle is the co-creator of the ClassroomQ. He's an Edtech coach at South Brunswick School District in New Jersey. He is a subject matter expert on all things flipped learning. And I know we're going to spend a lot of time talking about flipped learning today. But without further ado, how are you today, Kyle?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. And where are you at in terms of your school district timeline? Is school over yet, or do you still have a few weeks left?
You know, we go pretty late. We actually aren't done till June 22nd, and that was even taken off a couple of days.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, it varies across the board. And I know, obviously everyone's been going through some adversity with COVID-19 and remote learning, but I guess just to jump off, what has been the biggest insights you've gained so far from your remote learning experience?
Yeah, so my role as a tech coach has been ultimately to support teachers generally with their use of technology and help them come up with creative ideas and troubleshoot and things like that. So it's been busy, but really cool busy. My general insight is I've enjoyed seeing how much, I know it sounds so cliche, that teachers love their kids. I don't know, you've seen that all over just Twitter and anywhere you look. I feel like you took away a lot of grading, you took away a lot of the crazy stuff, and teachers are still doing everything they can to be innovative and fun. And I was like working with a teacher yesterday. There's like a tradition they always do where, they tap something on the way out of the school. And instead of them saying like, all right, I guess we can't do it this year, they said, how can we do this digitally? How can we still make kids feel amazing, feel important on their last couple of days of school? So I don't know, that's my biggest insight now at the last couple of weeks has been teachers are still, they have every reason to be tired and burn out, and they are still doing everything they can to make the kids feel important. So I don't know, it's been really cool helping them bring that stuff to life.
Yeah, totally. And I guess that maybe part of that in your response there might get into just, I'd love to learn more about just the ClassroomQ and the story behind that, like why you decided to work on that and bring it to life. What sort of, I guess for the audience that doesn't know what ClassroomQ is, maybe share with them what it's all about and kind of why you started it.
Sure. Yeah. I'm the co-creator of ClassroomQ. And it's been a cool journey. It's been about a 4-year journey. So for those who don't know what ClassroomQ is yet, it's like the simplest tech tool imaginable that kind of solves a problem. So for any teacher that has kind of a guide on the side approach where you're walking around helping kids all the time, it's like, I would say it's the digital deli ticket meets the classroom. So instead of a kid holding up their hand, which we always have had kids do in the past, because that's just how school goes, they basically click a button and then you get notified, hey, this person needs help, and you get a little cue on your end and the kid on their end gets a little notification. Your teacher's been notified, you're fourth in line or second in line, and then the kid can go back to work and you can kind of work your way through helping people. So in a nutshell, that's what it is. And it's like, again, one of those tools that like we've had so many teachers use it and realize like, wow, I didn't realize this is something I even needed because I'm just so used to like running around like a crazy person with kids with their hands up. So it started when I was in the classroom. Basically, I wanted a tool that did it and it didn't exist. And I couldn't believe it didn't exist because what a simple idea. So that began the journey of, well, I don't know anything about coding or anything like that, but let's try to make this thing happen. So I got hooked up with another teacher who has a little bit of background, and we, through a whole lot of trial and error, just kind of kept plugging along. And then eventually after a year or so, we have this product and it's been amazing. It's been used all over the world. It's over 1 million uses at this point. It's been really cool to see something that was in our head come to life and help so many teachers out.
Totally. And I got to ask you, just as the marketer in me is super curious, how are people today finding ClassroomQ and what does the adoption look like?
So from the marketing point of view, so if you're in the education world and if you're listening right now to this podcast, you are already getting PD through whatever source you have. And so educators I found who are interested in tech They listen to podcasts, they go to ed camps. So teachers are really, really great at, hey, when there's an amazing free tool out there, let me tell as many teachers as I can about it. That helps me out. So we've been really lucky that word of mouth has just kind of helped us. And we've had a couple big names, Jennifer Gonzalez, I don't know if you know her, she writes Cult of Pedagogy, and Catlin Tucker. So both of them are just such big, wonderful names, and they both kind of wrote us up and gave us a big shout out about what a good tool we were. And that kind of really helped us out too. So it's been really just honestly word of mouth and people telling other people. And that's kind of what we were hoping for. If we make something great for teachers, that people will tell each other about it.
Totally. It's that viral word of mouth, and teachers are really, really good at sharing free tools that are helping them out. So that's super awesome that you're able to kind of build a product while also doing your job as an ed tech coach. That's super cool. And, you know, as I meet people and people come on this show, it seems to be a trend of, you know, everyone's kind of a subject matter expert in a certain area. And just in getting to know you and talking, something that I know you're super passionate about is just overall flipped learning. And to me, it was a more of a new concept for me as I'm learning and understand what it is and how it works. So I guess just like starting at the surface level for the audience, can you maybe share what is flipped learning?
Yeah. So flipped learning is a lot of times confused with flipped classroom. So those two, they're connected but interchanged. So flipped learning at its simplest form is the idea of, instead of being, they always say, the sage on the stage, the person in front of the class giving the lecture to your kids, you are now more of a guide on the side. So they would say you're more of like a coach than a provider of just saying information at them. So it's the idea that now kids are accessing content, whether it be recorded videos, a lot of times it's recorded videos, or it could be other ways that they're getting the information. But basically they are accessing the content more on their own, and you're just there to help them understand it, facilitate small group instruction, and support people, as opposed to just giving them and saying things at them, which it's been really cool because I feel like it's also very much blended learning. A lot of these words kind of all blend together for, that was terrible. So yes, they all go together, but in a nutshell, that's what it is. And for me, I very much believe in and love using videos of yourself teaching. I think it has a whole lot of benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. And are there any examples of flipped learning just in this period of remote learning that you've experienced or can point to of how that's worked?
Yeah. So, I mean, for so many teachers in our district and everyone else, we got forced into it because some people are doing live lessons, but I know in our district, we're asynchronous. So teachers are recording lessons almost every day for their kids. And so right now, again, if you're listening to this and you're recording lessons, like, you're doing it, you're flipped learning, because right now kids are accessing their content at their own pace, and they can go back and rewind it, and they can access it whenever they want. And my best guess is you're probably helping them out, understand it, and checking for understanding and things like that. So it's really, what I'm really excited to see is that once we all go back into the classroom at some point, how all these new skills that we have learned transfer into kind of more of a flipped learning atmosphere inside the classes. Now that teachers have such a new skill set and all these new resources that they've created.
Yeah, and I guess from your perspective, what does that look like from the teacher's perspective that might not know that they're participating in flipped learning, but then go back to the physical classroom? Like, what, I guess, in your role, how do you help facilitate and make sure and bring that to life for the teachers that might not have been a big tech adopter prior to COVID-19, but now have been forced into it? How do you kind of guide them to continue their flipped learning experience on the other side of kind of the pandemic?
Man, that's such a good question. That's ultimately going to be my job for the next couple of years, or a big part of my job. And I'm actually doing a bunch of workshops next week on this very topic for my district. So basically, I'm going to encourage everyone to take it very slow and use what you got. So here's what I mean. So let's just say that I was a science teacher. So I have a lesson on DNA that I used to stand in front of the class and lecture about DNA. But now, because of this COVID situation, I now have a video of myself teaching DNA. So now come next year or whatever, hopefully next year, I have the same DNA lesson, and now you can either stand in front of the class again, or you have this pre-made video from when we were remote. I would encourage you to let the kids watch the videos in class, which sounds so weird because it is going to feel really weird, because you're like, wait, why would they watch a video of me teaching when I am right there? And so I would encourage you to try it, because I think I always say when I do my workshops, it's like you've cloned yourself, because now there's the video you who's given them the lesson, but then the real life you gets to walk around and check for understanding and help the students who you know are struggling. Because realistically, when you're up there lecturing, you know there's a few students who it's going right over their head, or they're really struggling with it, right? Or there's a few students who are bored out of their mind because you are going way too slow for them. So now when you've cloned yourself, you can encourage the people who know it to go faster and move on to potentially other things. And the people who don't understand it, you can sit with them and help them rewind it and understand the concept. So that's where I would start, is that very simple idea of just, if you have a lesson, let them watch it in class and just watch, because it's magical. I'm telling you, I know that's so corny, but like the amount of teachers who've tried this and you're like, oh my gosh. Like when I started, I was like, I will never, ever go back to standing in front of the classroom, because this is so great. They're getting the same information, but now you get to hang out with kids and have way better conversations. Like, why would I ever sit there and lecture ever again? Unless of course you have to, because of technology needs. Again, I'm talking ideal world, you have technology and stuff like that, but that's where I would start.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And how much does the kids spending a lot of time on social media, consuming video content, being on YouTube, how big of a role does that play into the overall adoption and success of flipped learning from like the student's perspective?
So my honest answer is I didn't find that it helped at all, because that was actually, I've gotten that a lot too, of like, you'll hear the kids these days, right? They're always on computers.
Right.
They're great with technology and they can learn. But like when I first started, oh my gosh, it was not great, because watching a video on TikTok is a whole lot different experience than watching it for content and trying to learn from it. So that's going to be another piece of advice I give teachers too, is like start off really slow and like help the kids in the beginning, you know what I mean? Like, because even you can't just give it to them and let them run. They're going to need some supports and some structures and, you know, graphic organizers or whatever you need to help them pull the content from the videos. They can't just do it as well as what maybe we would hope, because they're of the tech generation.
Sure. And then I guess on the other side of this, I would imagine students who go home and their parents are asking them, you know, how their day went. And they're, you know, those parents at the dinner table are trying to unpack what happened in the classroom. And a student describes, you know, flipped learning, that might cause the parent to just be curious on what is going on in their classroom, because it sounds different than what they're used to. So I guess what sort of feedback have you heard, for the better or worse, from parents in regards to flipped learning?
You want it when I first started it, or when I kind of got into my groove a little bit?
Let's do the whole thing.
In the beginning, it was not great for a lot of the reasons you said, but I also wasn't making my own videos. I was sending kids home to watch them instead of doing it in class. So a lot of feedback was very much like, are you even teaching my kid? Like, you're just sending them home to watch some random YouTube video. So that's why I always encourage teachers to make your own videos. And when you can, to do it in class, you can still support them. And because it's a little harder for kids at first, because it puts a little bit more ownership on them, I had a lot of kids making excuses, and I even got parent-teacher conferences. I got exactly what you're saying. Like, my kid says they're watching videos, they can't learn from it. Almost, they would make excuses and blame the video. So what helped so much was when I started making a parent video. So I made a parent video in the very beginning of the year, like a 10-minute video that just really went through why I do this. And I showed them some examples, and that helped so much with this kind of the cutting out that middleman of maybe a middle school kid making excuses and blaming the teacher. So that helped out. But ultimately, the parents who had the best feedback were, I would say, the kids in the margins. I don't know if you've heard that phrase before, but we'll say the kids who want to go the fastest, or the kids who struggle the most in your class. So what ended up ultimately happening, I was the only science teacher who was giving who had students who had IEPs, because they were all sent to my classroom because of my style of teaching, because they were able to go at their own pace. And so the feedback I got from parents of students who had struggled in the past was very, very positive, because they just felt so grateful that for two reasons. One, that their students could slow down and go at a pace that best fit their needs, as opposed to feeling really frustrated and trying to keep up with the class. But also, when your lessons are recorded, then the parents can sit down with their kid at the dinner table or after dinner table and help them out. Whereas opposed to, like, if you lecture, the parent can't actually see the lesson. They just have a kid's notebook or whatever it is. But having an actual lesson that the parents could also watch alongside with their kids was very, very helpful. So eventually the parent feedback was wonderful, but it took a lot of tweaking for me to get there.
Totally. And I think just the pace of learning is something important to just put an exclamation mark next to. I was thinking about just as I was getting up to speed on flip learning, I was using my own personal use case and just thinking about me going through the K-12 education system and just the different levels of learning that each student has and how every class I went to was all the same for every student. However, the way each of us absorbs and processes information is completely different. So this to me makes a ton of sense just based on how people consume information and process that. And so I see more benefits to this sort of model than I see negatives. But I'm curious, just have you faced what sort of challenges have you faced in terms of just those different ends of the spectrum and those different paces that students are absorbing information from in a flipped learning environment?
Yeah. So, I mean, and this is the hard part. And this is the hard part of trying to ever, I don't want to say convince, that's the wrong word, but I guess really show a teacher this style of learning is that there are going to be challenges. You know what I mean? And if you're really comfortable in the way you're doing things, do you really want to potentially disrupt everything knowing there's going to be some challenges? And at least for me, I saw the benefit of it. And that's what I always try to tell people is like, there's going to be a lot of challenges, but it's worth it. I mean, but that's a hard sell sometimes. So like now, one of the questions I always get, and it is a real challenge, is wait a minute. So kids are all working at a different pace. So aren't some kids finishing early, and aren't some kids need more time? And the answer is yeah. And so you need to restructure class and potentially have things for students to do who finish early that are worthwhile, and offer extra supports or more time for those who don't. So like that's a challenge, and that's one of the biggest challenges is the kids at their own pace. But I just think it's so. Oh my gosh. Like, okay, so let's just take, so Brett, what class were you pretty strong in high school or middle school or anything?
English.
English was your jam? Oh,
that was
man.
My jam. Yeah. Writing.
Writing? That's awesome. So I guess it's a little different because it's not so much like content lecture based, but it's the same idea. Like I got to imagine that when you were in school, there were times when you were learning something in English or whatever, and you were just like, you got it. Like, and the teacher kept droning on and on and on about the topic, and you were ready to, especially if you liked it, you were probably ready for the next topic or ready for more, weren't you, at some point?
Yep. Yeah. Whereas opposed to like maybe an algebra class or anything in the math hemisphere, I was not interested. I didn't get it. And I struggled to learn. Yeah.
So, but just going to like the topic or the class that you were strong in, like, I think so many of us as teachers, if a kid is like really, I don't know, understand the topics, we don't let them go as far as they can go, right? I think so often we're like, all right, so you got it. Maybe just ask good questions in class so people can hear your advice. I mean, we basically throw out kind of fluffy ideas because how in the world can we teach 24 kids at a different pace? And you can't when you're in front of the classroom, right? You just can't do it. Whereas now, if you're given the content in a video, now you might have been able to finish your lesson in half the class, and then your teacher says, all right, beautiful, you finished your required stuff. Here, like, what do you want to do that's going to make you feel good about it? And if you had some choice and freedom, then you'd go through the whole year learning everything you're supposed to learn, and then also some more amazing information about something you were going to get into. So I just think that it is a challenge, but like it is so worth it to see kids go further and go deeper, and see kids who are not frustrated and scared to come into class because or disruptive, right? Like how many, I don't know, like you talk about algebra. There were some classes that I was not the best, as well behaved in, and so many of them were because I was confused, and it would be easier for me to be the class clown as opposed to admit that I didn't know something. So I don't know if you were a well-behaved student in algebra and you worked really hard, or you were disruptive.
Yeah, maybe a little mix of both. But maybe just that on that teacher, the role of the teacher, I guess I'm curious about is, if kids are consuming videos and content in class, how do you describe the role of the teacher in that process? What are they doing? Like, are they answering questions, walking around the room? How do you describe their role in that process?
So that's, again, one of those things that's going to be really weird. When I had a teacher who tried it, she was like, wait, what do I do? Like, I'm so used to being in front of the class. So you're always busy. And they're like, it was really, really weird and bizarre. But then, of course, hopefully you're like, okay, this is amazing. What a great gift. I have this extra time what can I do? So I can tell you what I did. It depended on the lesson. So sometimes if I knew it was a challenging lesson, I'd be spending my time walking around helping students who needed help. If I knew it was more of an easier one and I wasn't really needed, so again, I was a science teacher. So let's just say I was learning about like the heart that day. What I would do is when they were on the videos, I would pull up small groups of like 5 at a time with a real like heart, and we'd look at it together really in depth, and then they'd go back to their seats and I'd pull up another small group. So I spent the class having really amazing small group kind of like lab activities, and they were easy, I could pull any group and they could just pause the video, come see me, learn something amazing, and then go back to the video. So that's how I did it. I did a lot of small group stuff or helping kids depending on the needs. And so I think every teacher is going to be a little different. My advice to anyone who's going to do it is, I guess, what not to do. And I would say, just don't fall into the trap, because I know we're so busy as teachers and we have so many things to do and we have grading to catch up on and lesson plans. But I think the last thing you want to do is, hey, now kids are learning, great, now I can get caught up on my grading or something like that, because then I think you would miss an opportunity to really get to know kids. And I don't know if I said this yet already, I don't think so. Like the relationships with kids, oh my gosh, like even like as they're working, sometimes, you can just go up to a kid who had an awesome like cross country meet the day before and be like, hey, dude, I just want to say, like, you crushed it yesterday. I saw that. Like, and like, you can't do that in the middle of your lecture. You can't be like, wait a minute, Billy,
Right.
You crushed it yesterday. Just want to let you know. I mean, I guess you could, but like, so like you could have, even if you spend your whole day that day just talking to kids about what's going on in their life and just quick little tidbits, or just to compliment them on something, like, I don't know, when you have a gift of time, there's so many really good things you can do with that extra time.
Yeah, I think that's a topic that doesn't get talked about enough. Is just that rapport building between the teacher and students. Just in your experience in the flipped learning environment, finding those moments, have you found that, complimenting students, and if they, had a good cross country meet, do you find that helps with their engagement in the content, that is presented for you as a teacher moving forward? Is that a helpful tactic in terms of building rapport?
So, but I feel like you can't generalize all kids, but yes, I guess. But if I'm going to be honest, like, I don't know if it truly helped them learn better. The fact that I would think so, but it made me feel better, and it made them feel better about coming to school, into my class every day, knowing that we had a better relationship. So if it helps their education, I would think so. But if I'm going to be honest, I care more about that they feel good about themselves, and they just know I'm there for them. So it helped with that. But I will say the mistake I made in the beginning, if I can just keep telling you all my mistakes I made, is I went too heavy on the flipped and too heavy on the computers, because I was like, this is amazing. And then I lost kind of that group community feel, because they were doing so much individual stuff that I didn't do enough full group discussions or just laughing together or playing games together. So I had to almost pull it back to some whole group stuff too, not lecturing, but whole group activities and just debates, or something that still maintained a community feel to it. So it wasn't just like they come in, they're on their own every day. So that's, again, just another flop that I made, is you still need to keep the balance.
Totally. And maybe we close this out. This has been fun, with just what's your perspective, especially just on the other side of, remote learning or distance learning. What's the future in your eyes of flipped learning and where it fits in?
Oh my gosh. I think that I think all the scariness that teachers had, they were scared to make a video. They didn't want to be seen on a video. How do you use the technology to start making videos? It was such a trial by fire that so many people now have not only the skill set, but resources, that I think that moving forward, I think there's going to be an explosion of flipped learning, blended learning, because so many people were forced to kind of get over these barriers that they were able to not address earlier. So I'm really, really excited for the future of education and where it's going to go. I think that it's going to be such a beautiful blended learning situation moving forward. I really do.
I love that. I can hear the passion in your voice, and I am excited to see what's next as well. Where can people find you online, or find more information about ClassroomQ? Where's the best places for them to go learn more?
Twitter. So you can just follow me at Twitter at my name, KyleNiemis, Kyle Niemis. And I have my messaging feature on. So I get messages all the time, actually, from people after podcasts just asking me questions. So please feel free to reach out. I love this, and I love helping people.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for the time today, Kyle. I know our audience is definitely going to benefit from this one. And hopefully, maybe in a few months or so, when school gets started, we can have you back on to talk about how flipped learning is working now on the other side of remote learning.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, thanks a lot, Kyle.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hope you enjoyed that conversation with Kyle. I need to have him back once everyone's back in the physical classroom, because I want to chop it up about how his flipped learning program is going. That's super helpful, and be on the lookout for more content regarding flipped learning at Dyknow.com and through our other channels. Definitely, if you like what you heard on today's episode, hit that subscribe button, leave us a review. Most importantly, be safe out there, and we'll talk to you again really soon.